Hello and welcome to today's watercolor painting session. This is going to be such a fun autumn leaf tutorial, something that you can use for greeting cards or just a beautiful page in your sketchbook. We have our two sample leaves that we'll be working with here, and we're going to be recreating the color, tone, contrast of them. So the first thing we want to do is just lay them out on the page and kind of see like how does it look, how do they look side by side. We'll do the brown leaf first. That is a leaf from a dog bean plant, I believe. So I'm going to move that aside. I'm going to grab some burnt umber and just lightly with my brush, I'm using a number 6 round. I'm going to lightly run up the center of the leaf straight up so I can get the size right. And then with a little bit more water on my brush, I'm going to slowly trace the outline. So this is, you could, do this with a graphite pencil if you'd like, but I kind of like doing it with the watercolor paint itself because it does add a little bit more depth and dimension as we begin filling it in. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of clean water without cleaning off my brush. Just grab some water and fill in the shape of the leaf with the paint that's already on the brush and whatever's already on the paper. And I'm rubbing it a little bit along the line so that it's not such a sharp line. Grabbing a little bit more of the umber, and let's just start darkening it. And it's okay if we have those spots, and that's kind of a fun thing about this wet on wet technique that we're using right now, is that it's very organic, right? The color is going to be bleeding. All you have to do is really tap your brush on, and enjoy enjoy the effect of the umber. Now, with some of the areas that you're going to want to continue to add the pigment to is the sides, right? We'll get the center in a bit, but I like having that rich pigment on the sides that gives it a nice outline. I'm going to grab a little bit of my violet ochre that's a little more purpley, but still very close to the burnt umber, and I just want to add a little bit more just more depth to these darker areas. So adding some to the spots I already have, and then continuing to tap until it comes, the color's a little bit darker, and while still maintaining that mottled look. With my orange ochre, I am tapping along and starting to fill in as it gets closer to the center of the plant. As you can see in our sample leaf, it is much darker along the edges, and then the center area of the leaf is lighter. But we don't just want that to be light. You could just leave it with white paper, I suppose. But that orange ochre really is a nice touch. So I'm going to grab a different paintbrush. As you can see, it's got a little bit of a point to it. So that's the only reason I'm switching. And what I'm just doing is I'm dragging it along the leaf, and that's going to mark up the paper and sort of serve as a place for the paint to collect. It's a little valley, a little river, and I'm lightly running it along the paper and tracing out the leaf veins in it. These are a little bit alternate, so that the veins don't come like branch out from the exact same spot, but very, very similar. I'm just going to kind of keep playing with that. As you can see, it's looking way more like a leaf now. And this is a trick where if you're kind of struggling with it, maybe your paper's too wet, maybe it's too dry, so just kind of play around with the liquid, the moisture on the paper a bit. And with my violet ochre, I'm going to elongate the leaf a little bit, add some to the center line, and this is kind of my opportunity to make sure there's enough contrast and sharpness in it. It's a very loose painting style while still maintaining some structure. That's kind of, for me, is the perfect balance. All right, And I'm feeling good about that. So let's work on this little yellow birch leaf here. Kind of remembering the general shape and size of it on the paper. I'm going to run, like we did the first one, we're going to do the center line of the leaf. And that gives us a little bit of an anchor point. And then kind of roughly drawing out the outline. And again, the nice thing with doing this with paint is, especially watercolor paint, is it's so flexible. You know, we can add, you can't really subtract that easy. So I would say go narrower first, and then, you know, as you want to tweak it, maybe you can start tweaking it wider, however you feel the shape needs to be improved. And I'm dropping some pigment along the outside and center of this leaf. And I like that little point at the tip. And the other thing that we need to do now is, unlike the other leaf did have some toothing, but it was really so minimal that I felt we could, you know, represent it visually just with a straight line. But with this birch leaf, I think it's pretty obvious that the toothing along the edge lends its character. So I'm trying a couple different things here. Trying to go from a couple different directions. It's so minuscule, and I'm really trying to avoid like drawing it out. Like, how can I do it with tapping? How can I do it with just like regular brush strokes? So really I'm doing a combination of movements to try to get that toothiness without, again, drawing it out with my brush. And I'm just bouncing between the yellow ochre and the orange ochre on this leaf. We'll just see how close we can get it. Let's keep adding the orange, and now I'm going to throw in just the kind of a hint of a center vein with that orange and pull down the stem a little bit. And now with my burnt umber, let's just add some darkness to the leaf, because as you can see, it's got some spotting, some darkness around the edges. You can just tap some areas, you know, for spots. And if you feel like there's something that needs more depth, like for me, I really like when that tip stands out. I think it looks so sharp and pretty on the paper. So I will add the umber to that as well. Now, using that other brush that I had, because it's got that point on the tip, let's draw in the veins again. Make sure that center line is good, and from the center line, go ahead and go outwards. These are a little more sharp up and down, and of course have zero control apparently over my brush, and my lines are going all over the place, but that's all right. I think that looks very nice and rustic and autumn-like. And now once those lines are drawn in, I can maybe add in my ochre if I feel like some spots need to be darkened. And I am just so pleased with how this is looking. Like, that is just gorgeous. And so easy. You know, what was that, 9 minutes of me talking and painting? And I don't know, what a fun project. So beautiful. So easy to turn into a greeting card, like I said, or just something to play with in your sketchbook. And if you want, you know, I think one of the final things that, just adding a little bit of a stem. My leaf doesn't really have one. Or if you know, as it dries, your watercolor paints will they'll fade slightly. So as it's drying, if you want to drop in some darker colors, like I'm doing with my violet ochre, and just adding in, you know, those final touches that make it really special. So I hope you enjoyed this painting session today. So beautiful, so autumn-like. Definitely hit subscribe to continue following along with tutorials on this channel, and I will see you next time.